doesn't run and anything like that. And he says, "You take a look at it." And I says, "Yeah, I can take a look at it. I don't know." You know. So anyway, he brought it over and he mounted on an oak board and stuff like that, and had a little tiny gas tank on it, and he had a battery with it, and which was dead. It was no good or anything. But what he brought in here, hacksawed it out. I don't know why, but the wheels, the flywheels turned, but the piston didn't run. So I said, well, I was at the show, and I said, well, I can't do too much here with it. But after dinner one time, at these shows, you don't have too much to do. But so I took the cylinder off and the head off, and had enough tools to do that. And I looked at it, and it didn't look like it was actually heat frozen.
Shipping and everything was about $45, and that's for a 32 ounce of the material. So that's quite a bit. I can do all the casting I want to do with it, because originally I was making these. I was making these small ones, but this one here, you can probably hear that. Hear the pump.
Excellent.
That's the way they fit. But
what is that material? How much is that like RTV? Is it real similar or is it quite different?
well, I had brought some of it before.
It's not RTV.
It's not RTV, no.
It's
It's
rubber.
than that.
It's rubber.
yeah. It's on the bottle. It says the hardness is 75/60, I believe it was.
Barometer.
Yeah. So, I just cast these things up on here, and this is a rubber. So, if somebody wanted one,
And
I
a
could.
flywheel pump is simply a pump with a flywheel action on it. And they run faster than the reciprocating pumps that most steam pumps you see are. The kind of pumps. But I saw these on British trains that were used for hauling passengers into stations where they had condensing on them. And so they needed to move a lot of water quickly, so they used a flywheel pump. And then I've never seen them on anything else other than the cylinder. And if you want it on the other side, you have two holes. So this one, when you flip that around, it has passages through it. But I got this thing going, and it didn't pump. And the reason it didn't pump is that it's got a 3/4 inch piston in the top and a 1/2 inch piston in the bottom. And to go at any speed, it can't move water in and out through the valves enough, and it just stalls the pump. So I downsized the pump. I put a sleeve in it, so now it's got just a little 1/4 inch pump in it. But when you're going like that, it's amazing how much water it moves. So anyway, that's what I did. I brought something else, which I was playing with, and I thought, well, the guys might want to see this. This is my safety valve tester. And the cool part of this is it has a telltale gauge on it. A lot of people have never even seen a telltale gauge. But as you come up in pressure, it travels the telltale around to the point where then you get the highest point that it's going to go to. Oops, sorry about that. I've been wanting to do that all day.
It's what it shot out the first time.
That was air.
No, it wasn't.
Oh yeah, well.
No, it wasn't.
Very human.
Particle of something. I wouldn't point it at
You're wearing
anybody.
your safety glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around this group, you bet.
That cylinder, or it can be caused by a bad valves, ignition problem, and on, but or a vacuum leak possibly. So there's a lot of ways you can eliminate by finding out that the cylinder has a decent amount of compression. And of course, the more compression you have, the better the engine's going to run, especially at slow speeds. And so I made up this little gauge. It's a real simple little device. It has a $7 Harbor Freight gauge and a little connector here to connect the, so I can put a check valve on the other end of the connector. It has a ball check valve with a spring and a ball, and it's supposed to keep the pressure when you run the or test the engine. It should, the gauge should go all the way up to the maximum pressure that the thing is capable of, and then stop, and the check ball is supposed to hold it. Lo and behold, when I tested it this morning, it didn't. The check ball, for some reason, got something underneath it or whatever, so I'll have to take that apart and clean it out. But anyhow, this engine is one of the ones I built and quite a while ago, a couple of years ago, and now I can test the pressure on it because I just made this pressure gauge. I was talking to...
What kind of pressure do you get when you're testing it?
Yeah. I was talking to Dwight and Paul a couple of weeks ago when I saw them, and I had this big thing that I got, automotive chunk of junk that I had used for a pressure tester years and years ago when we used to do that all the time. And so I had this big thing on here and the check valve at the other end and a long hose going to the spark plug hole. And so they politely said that, you know, these little engines don't put out much air pressure, and or they put out pressure but they don't have much volume. So the volume was the problem. So anyhow, I went back and thought about it and said, well, I better miniaturize this dumb thing. So I made this little adapter and a smaller check valve and of course a short hose to go to the spark plug hole. I'll pass it around. It's really simple to make these things. The check valve is the only thing that's tricky, the ball check, and it's really actually a simple device. But this will show you a low cylinder. You have to do check all the cylinders, take all the spark plugs out, spin the engine on every one, and it'll show you a low cylinder right off the bat.
What kind of pressure are you getting with this one?
Well, on this one, when I first set it up, I was getting about 80 pounds pressure. This morning when I tested it, I couldn't even get barely 60. I don't know what it'll get right now. But this engine, I've run it many, many times, demonstrated it many, many times in the last 2 years, and it's sort of getting sick. So there could be a valve problem or the rings, who knows. But I've got to take it apart anyway. So. Okay, today it got 60 pounds. And
What's the range of the gauge?
it ranges all the way up to 160. So let me get this on.
Yeah, if you were using a big gauge with large piping and whatnot, it would just take you a very, very, very long
Yeah, like
time
forever.
to pump that much air.
If you can overcome
It'll take a whole long time.
Of course, you can
In theory, you would eventually get there, but
Yeah.
past your rings, so you're gonna decay as fast as you.
Oh yeah.
That's the other component.
Yeah, you can't hold it.
Yeah, you pump up and you want to see what
Not
your
really,
decay is.
60
Should tell
pounds.
you
These are pretty tough little
where to look.
tubing.
Decays really
It's
fast
stick wall.
with bad rings.
It'd be interesting to have a third hand to hold a caliper up there to see what happens.
Yeah.
Just grow one, would you?
Well, as a matter of fact, this one slides off, so. Anyhow, I'll pass this around, everybody can look at it once I get it together.
If anybody wants to miniaturize a leak down detector, I have a Sun leak down setup that was given to me by a former club member a long time ago. and it's, you know, it's big. It's got so much volume inside that it'd never work for something like this. But
Yeah.
if anybody wants to take it and miniaturize it,
That's a really simple project to make that thing. It's not that
Yeah.
complicated whatsoever. Anybody can make one.
So the check valve is where?
It's right in this piece right here.
In the hex nut
brass
below the, okay.
Yeah. And in between, there's no space between the two pieces.
Right. Okay.
Close as I could possibly get.
Do you have a spring in it? Do you have a spring in it as well?
Yeah, a little spring hold the ball.
Yeah.
You know, 3/16 ball, you can get them at Ace Hardware.
And presumably the spring can be super weak. It's not
Yeah,
important as long as it seats well.
Yeah.
Made a bunch of YouTube videos, has a home web page with links to the YouTube videos. And so the cylinder will go up here, it's about yay tall. There will be sheet metal connecting the base to the this intermediate platform here. And what intrigues me about diesel is that no spark plug, no glow plug, no ignition system, no distributor, no battery. You just flip the flywheel and it starts running. And so I thought that would be really cool if it did run.
When I was a kid, I had a little model engine.
Yeah.
I was in junior high, and it was a diesel.
Yes.
I never could get that thing to run.
Yeah.
Just,
Well,
I think you're supposed to get an iron, you know, like iron clothes with it, and put it on the head and heat it up and everything.
Trying to heat up the net. Yeah.
well, the Cox diesels would run. I mean, they're really compression ignition,
Yes.
and they're using really lots of volatiles in the fuel.
Yes.
But I mean, there were 049s and 029s, as I recall, you know, with a little butterfly compression adjuster.
Yes. So I read up on what is the fuel for, you know, their diesel model airplane engines are really popular in Europe. Glow plug over here in the U.S. So I read up what is the fuel they use. It's 1/3 castor oil, 1/3 kerosene, and 1/3 ether as an igniter. But this engine's supposed to just run on kerosene, no igniter. It's got a 20-to-1 compression ratio. So you want a big 7-inch flywheel, so you got a lot of leverage in turning it over. And Dwight, if you still have any 7-inch diameter tubing that you can cut flywheel
Yeah,
rings
I
out of,
want 7-inch diameter.
I would appreciate some
Well, OD.
7-inch ID if it's a little bit. So if the OD is a little over 7 inch,
Well,
that would
I
be
don't
great.
know about that.
But if it's only 7-inch OD, that's still.
What kind of material? You want a heavy material like steel, like stainless, or something like that,
Just regular steel.
or aluminum, or
No. Regular steel.
yeah. Because I gave Paul off of a diving tank, you know, for skin divers,
Yes.
and they're about so big around,
Well,
and
was that a steel tank or an aluminum?
no, it was an air tank,
Aluminum.
Made of what material?
aluminum.
I'm looking for steel.
But it was real thick. I think it must have been a 3/8 of an inch thick or something like that. And he made a flywheel for one of his engines out of the thing.
Yes. The thing is, a diesel with a 20-to-1 compression ratio, you need a really heavy flywheel
Yeah,
Yeah, to carry it over.
to carry it over.
yeah. I may have. I have to look and see.
Okay.
Well, I got some bar stock that big, I believe.
It's kind of a big waste. That's a lot of swarf.
Well,
Yeah. So anyway,
what are you talking about?
This,
Okay, that's just a starter though, isn't it?
oh, this is, yeah.
Because
Goes
it
in
holds
here.
the pressure in there.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
this pushes the ball off the
Pushes
seat.
against the ball, okay.
That's my pressure relief valve.
I guess if I was to build that, I'd put some
I was gonna put a
bearings,
Schrader
ball
valve,
bearings
screw it in
there.
here and put a Schrader valve in there and Tell I got tin box. The object is you test it, see what the pressure is, and then go to the next cylinder, test that one, see what the pressure is. But
So you have
between
to switch
cylinders, between cylinders, if the thing was holding pressure, you'd release it with this. Since it's not holding pressure, it doesn't make much difference. It was doing real well
Yeah,
last
yeah.
week.
Well, you know,
And then,
I
of
made
course,
that
when I want to show it, it
model for
doesn't do real well.
Jefferson Museum.
You just talk to
It's
it.
all made out of brass. But
Say you're
but it's only 6 by 6 by 6 by 6, about 6 high.
okay. I'll try.
And I had to buy all this brass.
Not
And
really.
You can't just buy this little piece here. You
very well
buy
the
a
way it
rod
is.
of it. No, that's
I've got a pretty good counterbalance on the
I think the
crankshaft.
material
Peter?
run about $200 or so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Last initial L.
Now, the price of